Hey guys, so I just completed 150 hours of playing Phasmophobia, most of it in Nightmare or Nightmare like custom difficulties, and I feel we should have a tier list of all these unique 21 combinations. So some combinations are OG, where the evidence is like easy to get and the ghost is like very easy to figure out based on its pattern and behavior. But some combinations are so shitty that you're stuck figuring out the ghost even after multiple hunts and a long time investigating. So I decided that let's have a tier list where we rank each of these combinations as well as discuss that what we can do to figure out the ghost accurately in case we get any of this combination of evidence. So without any further ado, let's get started. So our first combination is EMF plus freezing, and this leads to a very shitty combination of ghost in my opinion. So for a Jinn, the behavior is that it will never turn off a breaker, which depending on the time of investigation or RNG, any ghost can mimic. The other special behavior of Jinn is that in case it is far from you, that is a distance of I think more than 3 meters, then it will rush towards you at a higher speed and then slow down when it is near you. And this is very noticeable during a hunt. And what you can do is you can just keep a hiding spot open, do the Jinn test. As soon as you see it rushing towards you, just smudge it and hide. So in that sense, it is an easy hunt test in my opinion. Shade on the other hand is absolutely shitty ghost to get in any combination. You really cannot rule out a shade. The way you can accurately figure out a shade is by ruling out other ghost types. So the unique behavior of a shade is that it will never blow out a firelight if you're in the same room, and it will also never hunt if you're in the same room. But on the smaller maps, there is nothing preventing a shade to just step out of the room and blow out that firelight, giving you a false negative that hey, it's not a shade. Similarly, it can just roam out of the room and hunt from there and just be shitty in general. Oni has a special trait that it is very active near you and it drains the sanity quite fast. Now, if you're playing the OG Nightmare, you won't have the sanity screen. So this is like absolutely useless. Regarding Oni having an increased chance of ghost events, that is something that can easily be mimicked by any other ghost as well. So a hunt is kind of necessary to correctly identify an Oni. But even in a hunt, the Oni has the Oni special trait is its blinking pattern, which is frankly not very easy to distinguish. Even after 150 hours, I am not able to very accurately narrow down on the Oni blink pattern and I still get confused. So that means you need to loop the ghost, which is much harder than let's say the Jid test where you just smudge and run. Twins compared to Shade and Oni are still quite comfortable. Now, their special quirk is that the faster twin is 10% faster and the slower twin is 10% slower. And it is not at all easy to distinguish between normal speed and this 10% higher or lower speed. How you can actually differentiate, how you can actually figure out a twin is by comparing the speed between the hunts. The 10% slower will feel a lot slower than the 10% faster. The faster twin, if compared to slower twin, will be very visibly faster. So what you can do is you can just hide in a hiding spot and hear the footsteps. In case you see that the speed has changed in between the hunts, then it is a twins for sure. Talking about the evidence, EMF 5 is something that is relatively easy to get because whenever the ghost interacts with something, it has a 25% chance of leaving an EMF 5, and so you are bound to get it sooner or later, unless the ghost is having low activity, in which case that is absolutely shitty. Freezing temperatures is something which haunts me in almost all my games, because if you're starting in a high temperature weather like sunny and the breaker is on, you have like 21 degrees in the entire house and it takes a while to get freezing. What can happen is that you might come to 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree range, and the ghost decides to roam and simply changes ghost room, and the cycle completely resets. The ghost needs to stay in the room to make it cold enough and get freezing, but depending on the roaming settings and RNG, the the ghost can simply hop from room to room to room to room and frankly never give you freezing even after a solid 10 minutes of investigation, and that can be annoying. So freezing all in all is not one of my favorite evidence and is slightly harder and totally RNG based to get. So with that, I think we can give this combination a well deserved D tier in my opinion. Coming to next, EMF plus Ghost Orbs. So this is actually one of the OG combinations I was talking about, because if you get this, you have already figured out the ghost. On a nightmare difficulty, Obake will have forced UV due to its special ability to leave those 6-fingered fingerprints. So it can never be an Obake with this combination in Nightmare. So the ghost is definitely Raiju. In a hunt, to quickly identify a Raiju, you can just hide in your hiding spot, drop the flashlight, and when the ghost is near, switch it on. Because ghost does not attract to a flashlight on which you have dropped on the ground, you can very easily turn it on and off to compare speeds and detect a Raiju. Talking about the evidence, EMF is not terrible to get if there is some activity, and Ghost Orb is the simplest evidence to get. You just get the ghost room, you get the video camera. Ghost Orb is like one of the most lovely evidences you can get. So this goes straight to S. Coming next is EMF and Spirit Box. So this gives a Spirit, Wraith and Twins. This is slightly good. Spirit Box is not a very annoying evidence. You can always put some salt as well as a motion sensor and determine if the ghost is Wraith or not, depending on if the motion sensor beeped and if the salt is disturbed or not. Similarly, you can also put a motion sensor and detect if the ghost is in the room, and always check for Spirit Box. Tier 2 and Tier 3 Spirit Box evidences are very easy to get as long as you are making certain that you and the ghost are in the same room. If you're in a room with lights off but the ghost steps out of the room, it will not give you Spirit Box. You and the ghost both need to be in the same room for it to give you spirit with lights off and preferably alone. And that is why motion sensor along with Spirit Box helps a lot, making this a okay evidence to get. And even within this combination, twins, you can just hide and wait out. After several hunts, it will be obvious that it's a twin. Wraith, the salt will never be disturbed. You can also do a hunt test like Jinn if you're slightly bold. You can just put salt and see if the ghost walks on it while hunting or not. Or you can also attract the ghost to your hiding spot and see if it stepped on salt or not. Basically, there are a lot of things you can do for a Wraith. And in case it's neither Wraith and nor twins, you can just go ahead with a Spirit. So Spirit, while not a very good ghost to get, in this particular combination can be deterministically identified by ruling out the other ghost. So I would say this combination deserves an A tier. Coming up next, Freezing and Spirit Box. So that gives us a combination of Onryo, Mimic, Twins and Moroi. Mimic can be very easily identified because we would also see ghost orbs, which will not be a which would be the third evidence in a nightmare like difficulty. So Mimic can be very easily identified. Twins can also be identified by difference between speed in a hunt, as we mentioned earlier. For Onryo, while it is slightly tricky, Onryo has this very weird gimmick where it will just insanely blow out a candle. So all of these ghosts have a 30-second timer before they can again blow out a candle, but Onryo can blow out a candle without any such timer. It can blow it out whenever it is going to hunt but is getting blocked by the firelight. So later in the investigation, when you're down to zero sanity, you would just see an Onryo going crazy all over the candles, and it will become very easy to identify. This I feel is much better than the crucifix test, because the tier 3 crucifix or tier 1 crucifix don't really go hand in hand, or if the range is slightly misplaced, then you can incorrectly rule out an Onryo when you shouldn't. But all in all, checking if the ghost is blowing out firelight insanely fast, that is a telltale sign of Onryo. Moroi is also a ghost that you can easily tell, but in this combination it is very easy to confuse a Moroi for a twins if you do not spend enough time, in the sense that twins can go fast and slow, and Moroi will start slow but go fast will start slow but will go faster as your sanity drains. What actually happens is you do a hunt, perhaps 2 or 3 hunts, and you see that hey, the ghost was slower and it now became faster. Now you can get confused. So what occasionally happens is that you wait for 2 hunts, you see that hey, first the ghost was slower and then the ghost is faster, and you say that hey, it's the twins. But it can also be a Moroi getting sped up, and which is why for the twins, at least in this combination, you will have to wait out for at least like 4 to 5 hunts and see if the speed is like continuously increasing, or is it like slow in between. If you see that in any of these hunts the speed slows down later on, then it is for sure the twins. but if the speed is just increasing, then that is Moroi. Now what happens in this combination is, again, Spirit Box is something you can easily get with a motion sensor, but freezing temperatures might take you a while, and this might keep you in the investigation for a longer time, which is not very awful for this combination because you would anyway need a few hunts to differentiate between twins and Moroi. So I would say this can actually go in B tier. Coming next is Ghost Orbs and Spirit Box. And unlike the previous Ghost Orb combination, I don't like this combination as much. For Onryo, we already discussed that we can see that it will go insane on the firelight. Yokai and Mare, on the other hand, are slightly harder ghosts to differentiate. Now, what can happen is, while trying to get the Spirit Box, you can actually enrage the yokai and he hunts and he insta kills you. If you're playing on a nightmare like custom with the sanity screen, you can very easily rule out a yokai by checking your sanity. But in OG Nightmare, where you don't have access to sanity screen, a yokai might be hard to tell because you might not know that hey, why your sanity is low, and you're left with the yokai test where you will have to see that is it attracted to your electronics when you're far away or not. And the quirk here is that a yokai might have just set a waypoint coming to you, and you might falsely believe that it is being attracted to your electronics. So you need to repeat this for multiple instances, perhaps in a single hunt or perhaps in multiple hunts. But yokai test for me personally is slightly hard to do deterministically unless you know the ins and outs of the map and where good spots for a yokai test would be. But even then, it might take multiple hunts. For Mare, it has a special ability that whenever you turn on a light switch near it, it has a chance to instantly turn it off. The quirk here is that any ghost can decide to turn off a light switch, and it can happen that the ghost decides it just sometime after you flicked it on. So again, you need a lot of instances of this to confirm a Mare. The other thing is, a Mare will never turn a light on, so if the ghost turn the light on, you can just cross her off. But more often than not, Mare, Demon, Urei, these three are kind of just hard to differentiate and determine deterministically, so it is always left to chance with them. So I would say that this combination in particular can sit at B tier. Actually, I think B tier is fine because in Nightmare you start at 100% sanity. Had it been insanity with the little grace period that you have, I would have put it C because yokai instant hunting and killing you is like not as good. But I think this one can sit at a B. Coming up next is EMF and UV. That gives us Jin, Goryo, Obake, and Myling. And this is actually a decent combination to get because EMF, after like some interactions, you're bound to get an EMF 5. UV is also not terrible. All the ghosts have a 100% chance of leaving fingerprints except for Obake, but you can always just get some salt and check for footprints and get UV in a very easy way. Now in this combination, it can never be a Goryo because Goryo will have forced dots on a video cam, and Jin and Myling are very easy to rule out in a hunt. So for Myling, a very deterministic test is you hide in your hiding spot, you throw your flashlight on the ground. If the flashlight is blinking but you're not hearing the footsteps, it can be a Myling. And in general, the quiet footsteps of a Myling are very easily noticeable in the sense you won't hear it unless it is very near, and even then it will be very light and a very faint sound. So Myling overall is a relatively easier ghost to figure out. Jin, as I mentioned earlier, you can just carry a smudge and you can just be at a distance and see for the speed rush. Now Obake's shapeshift pattern, before the media update, it was very shitty because it could just shapeshift for a fraction of a second, and if you miss that for any reason during looping because you're trying not to die or you're trying to just figure out where to loop or anything, then you just missed it. By the way, Obake shapeshift also includes shapeshifting into same model but changing the posture. For example, a standing ghost can be back crawling, or it can also be crouching, and that also counts as an Obake shapeshift. So this is something that is easy to miss out in a hunt unless you're like being very attentive, which is not possible because Obake speeds up with line of sight and you just and you don't have the liberty of just watching it shapeshift in the hunt. But in this particular combination, because Myling and Jin can be ruled out easily, this is a pretty decent combination. This is something that I can give, frankly, S tier, because all the ghosts can be easily determined. The next is Thermo and Ghost Orbs. Onryo, Hantu, Urei, and Revenant. Onryo, as we talked about, will go crazy on the candles. A Hantu is also very easy to determine in the hunt, as in it is slow. It is not super slow, but it is slow. Urei is a very annoying ghost to get in any combination, but in this particular combination, it is not as annoying because the other choice is Revenant. Now, a Revenant is a very dangerous ghost to actually try to loop, or if you're not careful. What I would do in this combination is that I would hide in the hiding spot and check for speed. A Revenant moves very slowly. If you suspect that it's a Revenant, or if you're confused between Hantu and a Revenant, what you can do is you can just step out from your hiding spot. Carry a smudge, by the way. You can step out from your hiding spot. You can attract the ghost with electronic or global chat and quickly hide back. A Revenant will simply come rushing towards you, while a Hantu will maintain its normal speed. And like that, you can kind of comfortably determine between ghosts, especially Hantu and Revenant, which have. So in this combination, because we're able to like determine all the ghosts accurately, I think this deserves an A. Ghost orbs is also an easy evidence to get. The only reason it's not S is because thermometer can be really shitty. The next combination is EMF and Ghost Writing, and this is the unholy duo. I do not like this combination. While EMF5 you can still get, ghost writing is something you're totally at the mercy of ghost to interact with the ghost writing book, and at times it can take a lot of time before it decides to write in that book. Now, one thing that you can do is, and this is coming from the Phasmo devs itself, if you take out all the items in the room which the ghost can interact with, like cans or throwables, then the ghost will have an increased chance of interacting with ghost writing. Think of it like this: if the ghost decides to interact with something and it has a lot of choices, it might not pick ghost writing due to the number of choices it has. But if you lower the choices, the ghost might be forced to pick ghost writing because hey, there's nothing else to interact with. Even then, you could not do anything about the doors and the light switch, so ghost writing might take some time, but at least there is a way to speed it up, and you can get it even when the ghost roams, as long as it is like within range, so it is not as shitty as freezing temps. But this combination, my god, miling is something that you can determine easily within a hunt or two, but shade and spirit, this is basically something which eats up a lot of time. Like, let's say it's a spirit, you smudge it did not hunt for 3 minutes. What now? You will smudge it again and see if it waits for 3 minutes again. You might smudge it a third time and see if it did not hunt for 3 minutes again. But even then, you cannot deterministically say that it's a spirit. It can as well be a shade, because it is either in the same room as you, whether it's roaming or whatever, or it can also be because that this ghost simply does not like to hunt. And then this becomes really RNG on whatever ghost you choose and whatever ghost you get. And so I would say that this combination in particular goes to D tier for me. We did not get anything C tier yet. Let's see. Coming up next, EMF and DOTS. One of the most hated evidence. So DOTS as an evidence deserves some explanation. So a ghost, just like ghost writing, decides to interact with something. That something can be a DOTS state. That is, it in this state you can see it in a DOTS. So if the activity level of ghost is low, or if the activity level of the difficulty is low, dots is going to like literally make you cry. And this is also a reason why I play on a custom nightmare like preset instead of exactly nightmare, because I just love to set the activity level and ghost events to high to quickly get this evidence and not be stuck in a limbo where I just have EMF 5 and I'm like struggling for the next evidence. But for the ghost in this combination, a Raiju you can very easily determine. For a wraith, salt is again your best buddy. If it stepped in salt, it's not a wraith. Otherwise, if it did not step in salt and it's been like 10 minutes of investigation, definitely a wraith. Oni and Goryo is where things kind of go shitty. A Goryo will not give you dots if you're in the same room, and it will only give you dots over a video camera. Now, while it does not sound like a big deal, it definitely is a big deal if you're in the hunting range, if your sanity is within the hunting threshold, because the ghost can just chain to chain, back to back hunt, and you might not never get this evidence at all. What I like to do is I just leave the ghost writing book there. Checking for UV and Ghost Orb is simple because UV is kind of 100% unless it's an Obake, and Ghost Orb with a video camera you should be able to get Ghost Orb pretty quickly. Spirit Box is also something which you can get relatively easily, especially by checking with a motion sensor. If I do not get any of these three, then I know that it is a waiting game. And what I like to do is I just put my camera there, I put dots, ghost writing, and I just watch it for like 2 minutes in the truck. Now it is possible that in those 2 minutes you still don't get dots, but hey, you have a higher chance of getting it, or at least you might just get a ghost writing book or freezing temps. But what this means is that the investigation will be longer. That being said, an Oni can be differentiated with the increased event and how crazy it goes whenever you are near it. But a hyperactive guru can also give you the same. And frankly, you might even not know if it's a Raiju or not. A Raiju can also early hunt if there are electronics nearby. I think it's 75 or 60% sanity. But the deal is that it can early hunt and it can be crazy. And an Oni can also drain your sanity quickly, leading to hunts very quickly. So again, you might not have all the comfort to get dots if you're near the ghost room. This particular combination, while Raiju and Wraith are like easy to tell, Oni you will have to loop around and it might not be very obvious, and Goryo is just a pain, but at least determinable in this set of combination. But given how shitty Dots is, I am kind of inclined to give it a D tier, not definitely not a C. Should it be F? No, I would definitely give it a D tier because you can determine the ghost here somewhat accurately. I would any day prefer EMF and Ghost Orb rather than EMF and Ghost Writing, and be and being stuck between deciding a spirit and a shade. So definitely not F tier. Coming up next, Ghost Orbs and Ghost Writing. And this gives us a mare, a revenant, or a thigh. So Ghost Orb is usually a very immediate evidence that you can get. Ghost Writing, while it might be a waiting game, you can always use the trick and speed up. The dangerous thing here is that you have a Thay. So one telltale sign here is that if you see Ghost Orbs, it's definitely not an Oni. But if it is still going crazy on ghost events, it can be a Thay. So what you should do is you should prepare your hiding spots. I always like to keep a closet door open so I can just quickly rush into it when the hunt begins. And you should definitely carry a smudge with you in case it starts to hunt. What I also like to do with the Thay is that I just hide in the locker in the ghost room and let it age more and more and more. And when it's down to 15 sanity, I just complete all my hunt related objectives as well as practice looping a slow ghost, because a Thay cannot speed up with line of sight. Now, due to the insanely fast speed a Thay has, it is like very easily identifiable in this combination. A Revenant will be very slow, which will be very obvious from the first hunt itself. And you also don't have a risk of mimic because you get ghost writing. So you can very easily and accurately determine a mare as well. So I think this combination definitely deserves an A. The only reason it's not an S is because you still have a risk of Thigh early hunting you and you dying from it. But this definitely is one of the better evidences to get, even though ghost writing might be a waiting game. So even here, because they are insanely active in the beginning, they are much more prone to give you ghost writing like very early. There are games where I just walked into the Tanglewood foyer, placed down the ghost writing book, and had a two back-to-back ghost events and ghost writing within like 10 seconds. So Thays are like one of my favorite ghosts, which I then proceed to bully to the fullest. But definitely, if you see that it's a Thay for sure, I believe you should definitely go for zero sanity and practice looping it, so at least you're not as afraid of looping a ghost. And you can also practice hearing their footsteps and seeing that, hey, am I able to loop this ghost without properly seeing it, or when I'm crouched down. So basically theys are like very good for practicing looping. Coming up next, ghost writing and spirit box. So to start, this is one of the less favorite combinations, simply because A, you have 5 ghosts instead of the usual 3 to 4, and B, you have a spirit and a mare to differentiate, which is very hard to do in a hunt. They do not have any unique characteristics during a hunt. As long as Diogen is a possibility, you should always carry a smudge stick, because it is possible that you're hiding in a closet and the Diogen just gets to you. Now that would be sad, because Diogens are known to give like insanely perfect games and insane payouts. You would not want to just die to a Diogen hiding in a closet. A Moroi, again, you will know by the hunt. Poltergeist is one of my favorite ghosts to get, because A, you get its polter explosion where it lifts a lot of objects and throws them in all directions. And the other thing is, during a hunt, a poltergeist will definitely throw items, and it will throw them very, very far off. So what you can do is you can just pile up a few items on a looping spot, do a round of loop or two, and check for two things. Do you see any item which is thrown with less force? Now, in a normal hunting behavior, a ghost has some chance to throw item, some chance to throw it near, some chance to throw it far, and some chance to like not throw it at all. But a poltergeist will definitely throw an item, and it will definitely throw it far. So if you get any one item which is like thrown in a meh way, you can very easily rule out a poltergeist. Otherwise, you can also check for its out of hunt test of a polterplosion. Now, between a spirit and a mare, you're at the mercy of RNG gods in this one. If it is a spirit and it turned on a light and you were able to remove mare, then you lucked out. But in case the activity is low, then that's tough luck. Which is why, again, I like to play in a nightmare like custom difficulty, but not nightmare mode in itself. What I would do in this situation is, if it's not a Deugen, if it's not a Moroi, and if it's not a Poltergeist, I would just smudge it once and see if it hunts before the 3-minute timer. And if it did not hunt, I will just go with the spirit, otherwise with a mare. That being said, you should definitely try to get the mare ability. So how a mare ability works is that if the ghost is near a light switch and you turn it on, the ghost can turn it off immediately. If it did not, then that light switch goes on a 10-second timer before it can actually get a mare ability. So because this particular evidence, it suffers from RNG gods for ghost writing, and it also suffers from RNG god between a spirit and a mare, where you can't actually get the ghost accurately. I would kind of say that it is F, simply because you have 5 ghosts and you still can't determine all the ghosts accurately. So it's definitely an easy F tier for me. Coming up next is temperature plus ghost writing. We again have that unholy duo of demon and a shade. Moroi and Revenant, as discussed, very easy to figure out and differentiate. But in this combination, both ghost writing and freezing temperatures are just a waiting game, in the sense that you need to wait for ghost to interact with the book. B, if the ghost is roaming, it is going to give you a very hard time before giving freezing temperature. And C, a demon can actually hunt before you even get a single evidence by using its special ability. Now, this is where sanity screen actually comes into play. If you're playing with sanity screen on and you get a hunt, you can just quickly check that, hey, what is my sanity? A Revenant and Moroi hunts at 50% sanity, and a Shade hunts at 35% sanity. So if the ghost has hunted above 50% sanity, you know that it's a demon for sure. But in original Nightmare without the sanity screen, this crucial information is just lost, and this kind of becomes a very unholy duo where you're again dependent on RNG on if it's a shade or a demon. Now, hunt frequency is also RNG factor in the ghost, and that is kind of more prominent than the ghost behavior in itself. I have got shades which gave me back to back chain hunts and felt like a demon, and I've got demons who just did not give me a single hunt at all in a 25-minute investigation. So if it's not a Moroi or Revenant, and you're stuck with shade and demon, then this is a very shitty evidence combination to get, especially if the ghost is roaming. That just makes it more awful. So this is also an easy F for us. Coming to next, freezing and UV. Now with this we can get a mimic, a hantu, a demon, or a jinn. So UV in itself is a very good evidence to get. You can get it quickly. Freezing is painful as always, but this particular ghost combination is like not as bad, in the sense that a mimic will always give you ghost orb, so you can instantly know if it's a mimic. Hantu and jinn you can determine from a single hunt. If it rushes at you when far, then it's a jinn. If it does not speed up with line of sight and you're able to loop it comfortably, then it's a hantu. Otherwise, it's a demon. So if the breaker is on, then a hantu will be relatively slower, and you can loop it kind of easily. Now a lot of people say that. Now another quirk of hantu is its cold breath when the breaker is off. But I personally don't like it, because if the breaker is off and it took some time to hunt, the room can get cold, and a hantu in a cold room is like very fast. So what I do instead is I keep the breaker on, and based on the speed, if it does not speed up with line of sight and I'm able to loop it comfortably, then it definitely is a hantu in this because no other ghost in this combination can actually do that. So this combination, UV being easy to get and this combination being deterministic, I would say that it also goes to, I would say, B tier. Actually, I think this would go to A tier. Yeah, definitely. Freezing is not as bad as I could say other, but at least, but again, it's not as OG as UV plus EMF. Coming up next, ghost orbs and UV. So UV and ghost orb is a slightly deceiving evidence, especially with respect to mimic, because what happens is if you get UV and freezing, you can check for ghost orb and determine a mimic. If you get UV and spirit box, you can check for ghost orb and determine a mimic. But if you get UV and ghost orb, you will have to check for either a spirit box, still easy with motion sensor and spirit box, or freezing temperature to confirm a mimic. And what happens is freezing temperatures more often than not take a lot of time. If the ghost is roaming, freezing temperatures will take a lot of time to get. So you might actually rule out a mimic when it indeed is a mimic, just because you did not get freezing till now, or because you did not check the temperature after getting two evidences. Now this combination in particular, not the easiest, but also not the worst. Hunt 2 you can determine in a single hunt in itself. Between Obake and Banshee, you can do a Banshee test, especially on larger map, where you can check, where you can put a crucifix next to you and motion sensors in the way of ghost room to you, and see if the ghost comes to you and then goes away. The other or more reliable test for a Banshee is to check for its Banshee screen in between the hunts, and if you're able to get that, then it is like for sure a Banshee or a mimic mimicking a Banshee. Obake requires looping along with precise observation. So this is something, so this test is kind of difficult. So what I do is I try to check for a Hantu and a Banshee instead. Now Banshee and Obake both are normal speed ghosts, and Obake straight to shapeshift might not be very noticeable in a hunt where you're just trying to stay alive and loop the ghost. That being said, I also had Banshees who just refused to talk to Paramic even after a 25-minute investigation. And if that happens, then you are left with no choice but to rule out or test for Obake. So for an Obake, as I mentioned before the media update, it was horrible. But after the media update, you can just point your video camera at the Obake and it will record the shapeshift moment. So one trick that you can do is, if you have some tier 3 salt, it slows down the ghost. So you can just put some salt in the looping spot, and you can also smudge it additionally, and you can see if you are able to get a shapeshift in the camera itself. Now, because Obake's shapeshift is not RNG, but it has to happen after a fixed number of blinks. If you don't get a shapeshift in the media, then that is a very easy way to cross out an Obake and go with Banshee. But if you get a shapeshift media, then congratulations, you have an Obake. That being said, it will require you to loop the ghost for a fixed number of time or a fixed number of blinks. So it definitely is not very easy. It might even be harder than Oni, because as time goes, a Oni's blink, you would be more easily able to identify an Oni's blink. But an Obake's shapeshift will be like very easy to miss out. And that is why you would need a camera pointed at it for all times. Because it is possible that in the small window where you switch over to smudge and back to camera, the Obake shapeshifts and you totally miss it. Which is why you should ideally loop it around salt so you get some time seeing the ghost, and then additionally smudge and record it. And if you still don't get it, then you can kind of more accurately rule out an Obake. These evidences are easy to guess, but this ghost combination is like really deceptive, because Banshee and Obake can kind of be hard to differentiate unless you're somewhat good at looping, and a mimic can always deceive you at all times, so that goes without saying. This one for me would be B tier. Now coming next, UV and Spirit Box. So this is what I was saying. So in this combination, you can just easily check for a ghost orb and determine a mimic. A phantom is also very easy to determine. If it does a translucent ghost event, a shadow ghost event, or a singing ghost event, and you click a picture, if the ghost disappears but the event sound is still continuing, then it is a phantom. You can also determine phantom in a hunt, in the sense that phantom is very less visible. A phantom will be invisible for 1 to 2 seconds, and this is so drastically different from the normal that anybody can say that hey, this ghost is barely visible and it's definitely a phantom. What can happen is the ghost can get to you and kill you while being invisible, so you should definitely be on your toes and just smudge and run as soon as you determine that it's a phantom. Perhaps even slow it down with tier 3 salt so it does not reach you in a period of invisibility. But a phantom otherwise is very easy to determine. A poltergeist, as discussed earlier, can be very easily determined on and off hunt, and this evidence combination in particular is not very hard to get either. With a motion sensor you can accurately get Spirit Box, and UV is also very easy to get for these ghosts because all of these will leave a fingerprint with 100% chance. So I think this definitely goes to S tier. The next combinations all are having dots, so I think we all know so I think we can make an idea on where they will be standing. So moving on, Ghost Orb and Dots. So as painful of a evidence combination it is, because dots can be very hard to get if the activity is low. This combination also has 5 ghosts. A Thay can be very easily determined. A Raiju we discussed. A Yokai, I don't have anything further to add. Between a Banshee and a Yurei, you're kind of stuck between getting their off hunt abilities, which can also be a pain if the activity is low. You can either do the Banshee test that I mentioned earlier. So if anywhere you see that the ghost has interacted with the door but left it half open, you can remove a Yurei. But overall, these two ghosts cannot be differentiated on basis of a hunt, and you're kind of stuck between getting their off hunt specials either via paramic or by a double door touch, where the Yurei will double touch a door, close it completely. So all in all, I think this is perfect for our C tier. We have one easy but one very painful evidence, and we have 5 ghosts as well, out of which we can't accurately determine 2 of them. Next is freezing and dots. So this is a very painful combination to get, and Oni, at least due to its nature to be more active when near a human, has a chance to give dots slightly early. So you might be stuck with this while the ghost roams or freezing takes time, and this is actually a very very terrible preset to have. But Urei are also easy to rule out in the sense that you can see the partial door closes or not, and Oni at least has a way to be accurately determined in a hunt, so it is not as bad. But these two evidence, by their nature of being very painful to get, I will rate them C tier. I will not rate it D because firstly we just have 2 options and it is like kind of easy to differentiate between Oni and Urei in a hunt. So after a hunt I can be very sure that hey, it's a Urei or it's an Oni. The point is, while the evidence is painful to get, it narrows down the choice to just 2 ghosts, making it kind of worth it. Coming next is Ghost Writing plus UV. So Ghost Writing UV is Polter, Demon, Myling, and you can very easily figure out the ghost in this combination as well. For Myling you just don't have to do anything, you can just hide in the closet. Although I have repeated this enough, if you're playing with the sanity screens on, a demon becomes very trivial because of its very high hunt threshold. What happens is in these games, what is my sanity, right? Is it 70? Is it 60? Is it 50? And you cannot take a call on if it was an early hunt or if the ghost just brought down your sanity. But at least in this combination in particular, you can hide in a closet and hear for footsteps and determine if it's a miling or not. You can also check for poltergeist ability, or you can also just set up a polter pile on the looping spot and see if the poltergeist clears it off, in which case demon is the only remaining option. And because we have ghost writing, we don't have a chance of mimic as well. So all in all, this is slightly comfortable combination to get, ghost writing being definitely more preferable than dots. So I would place it in the, I think I can place it in the A tier. It's not super obvious which what the ghost is, but you're able to like narrow down the ghost enough, so I think this definitely deserves an A. Now we have Spirit Box and Dots, Wraith, Phantom, Yokai, Delusion. So this is, while Dots is a very painful evidence to get, among these four, the what the ghost is becomes like very obvious. Wraith due to salt, Delusion by the hunt behavior, Phantom by the blinking, and Yokai if it's not the other three. So in that sense, I will give it a C, or actually a B. Even though Dots is a pain to get, I think B is well deserved. Dots and ghost writing, this is like one of the worst combinations after dots and freezing. Oh my. Dots and ghost writing. Now, while you may say that this would be a horrible combination, this is surprisingly a very good combination because you can only have a Thay or a Diogen, and the Thay is going to be super active. If it's super active, it will be super visible in the dots. It will give you ghost writing very quickly, and it will just do an event after event after event on you. And a Diogen is like very easily identifiable by the hunt. These are like two polar opposite ghosts in a same set of evidence. So this definitely deserves, while this is very painful to get, I will rate it, give it a A. The only reason why I'm not giving it an S is because the evidence, actually no, wait, because a Thigh has increased activity and will give you dots quickly, I think this deserves an S. Because if you don't get it, all you have to do is just drain down your sanity and check. And because a Thay will also do an early hunt, a Diogen cannot hunt before 40% sanity, and a Thay can hunt below 75% sanity. So the difference in sanity is also like insane, and you can figure it out in the hunt itself. So I think this combination of evidence definitely deserves an S, even though these are like very painful to get. And last but not the least, we have UV and dots, and this gives us Banshee, Phantom, and Goryo. I I might say that I don't like this combination at all. A Phantom is like easy to determine by the blinking pattern, but between a Banshee and Goryo, you're like stuck indefinitely. It all boils down to either A, you get a Banshee scream, or B, you are camping outside the ghost room and you see dots in camera but not outside camera, which in theory sounds good, but practically Goryo barely gives dots. Goryo will be giving dots for like 1 second, and before you're seeing from, and before your eyes switch from the camera to your monitor, the ghost is already gone. And this sucks. While my Banshee test helps me personally for this particular combination, Goryo is still a bad ghost to have in this set because there's no other difference. If it actually is a Goryo, you will be like, so let me actually explain this. If it's a Banshee, you're eventually bound to get a Banshee scream and can accurately determine that, hey, yes, it's a Banshee. But if it's a Goryo, you will not be getting a Banshee scream, and you will be left wondering that, hey, is it the RNG which is against me, or is it a Goryo? So what it will mean is that you will be just stuck in that investigation for next 10 to 15 minutes just with a paramedic and waiting for the ghost to give you that one evidence. And God forbid if it starts to hunt, Banshees often have a tendency to just roam to you and hunt on top of you. So a long investigation plus a Banshee and a Phantom also is a roaming ghost as well. It does not actually sound a very good combination to me. So this can very easily go to C tier. So this is the final tier list where we rated all the 21 evidence combinations. Let me know what you know in comments, And definitely let me know if you disagree with my tier placing of any of these evidences. I think that would be a good discussion. So, signing off, folks.